Gaming in 2025 is such a strange thing because you have to be hyper aware as a gamer in a way that we didn't have to be in the past. Decades ago, when I was growing up, when I could barely even hold a controller, you just played stuff because it looked good in a gaming magazine or the box art looked cool. You go, okay, Grandia. I like the screenshots. It's a cool concept. I buy it and I play it. But when a game series died, you didn't really understand it. At that point, there wasn't public sales data. You didn't know, hey, where the heck is Grandia 4? Did the studio shut down? Did the director get fired? Did it not sell enough? We really didn't know. But at this point, in 2025, we're able to do research about which companies are the most malicious, which stuff is the best to play, which games have the coolest fan bases and stuff. But it almost feels like that's not enough. With game budgets getting bigger and bigger and bigger, especially at PlayStation, we're seeing this explosion of cancellations, projects that are canned before they even release because the companies think, oh, this isn't even prospectively profitable enough. We can't even imagine making our money back, so let's just delete it all, write it off on our taxes. Now, what's the answer to this? Is it lower budget games? Is it more AA? Is it more indies? Is it more random tiny spin-offs? Is it more DLC? Well, the ex-head of PlayStation, Shawn Layden, the guy who's actually head of PlayStation for years and years and years, his solution is that we need to increase game prices, but not just increase them, we need to perpetually increase them. They should have started at like $40, then go to $50 to $60 to $70. Games are cheap on PlayStation 1, slightly more expensive on PS2, PS3, PS4, and by current tense, maybe games are supposed to cost $120 a pop. Now, immediately, people are giving pushback. Immediately, people just do not even like this idea. But I want to go through this mathematically and a lot of Shawn Layden takes because I almost feel like, as smart as he is, I don't think he understands what it's like to be a gamer in 2025. Let me explain. Hi, I am DreamcastGuy, and if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Former PlayStation US boss Shawn Layden says the price of video games should have increased with every new generation to cover the tighter margins created by increased development costs. Now, I'm not going to pretend he's completely wrong. This is something that honestly has been measurably increasing, which is that just in general, as graphics increase, higher resolution assets, bigger development teams, crazier cutscenes, more mocap, more celebrity voice actors, just in general, even with cheap games, prices are going up. It's impossible to make a game for cheap anymore, right? Everything costs tens of millions of dollars, even for stuff that looks lazy and low budget. So I understand the idea conceptually about how margins are tight. I mean, typically, if you were making a game, a lot of these games back in the day were made for so incredibly cheap, they could sell like 50,000 copies and be a massive success. If your game sold 200,000 copies, you know, your bills were paid for years. Whereas now, if a game sells less than like 2 million copies, especially a PlayStation exclusive, it's deep in the hole. But I just feel like he's thinking about this in the wrong way. Now, I like the fact that everybody said Shawn Layden is a guy that talks a lot about the industry, his takes, and I want to go through a lot of it because a lot of people think that as intelligent as he is, sometimes he just comes off as a jerk. What a fool. So it's our fault that y'all are blowing up budgets. This guy does not know when consumers say it's enough, games will stop selling. Now, this to me is an interesting concept. If it's a thing, honestly, I've sat and thought about this so much, which is not spending money on games, free to play. Right now, a lot of the biggest games on the planet, it's live service, but it's not just stuff like Fortnite and Marvel Rivals and stuff. I honestly feel like a lot of the live service stuff is like, I play a lot of World of Warcraft Classic. I play it all the time with my friends. And it's interesting that a lot of my guildmates and stuff, they only play that. They don't play any other game on the planet. To them, they pay $15 a month. It's infinite fun. They can farm gold and do dungeons and stuff. They do not play any other game ever. And I think there's a lot of people out there like that, where they play their live service game, whether it is free to play or not. And that's just their entire world. They don't care about outside that ecosystem. And I do think that in a lot of ways, these companies feel like they're trying to find a way to drag you away from your current addiction. And it's just not working. Like, this is the current study. This is current data. A study has shown that North American gamers spend on average $325 on gaming annually. Now, I want to make it clear, on gaming, I think this means everything, not just the games themselves. That's not just saying they buy, $5, $6 games. I think it's basically saying that's also people buying headsets, that's buying controllers, that's buying a better TV so your games actually look better, that's buying a console. That's a pretty tiny amount. Like, to a lot of these companies who are trying to make, billions and billions of dollars off this limited group of gamers, that's not very much, especially because in other parts of the world that currently are considered a huge part of the market, it's lower than that. Europe is spending $125 per player. This seems both high and low at the same time. I mean, a lot of people are basically saying, was expecting this to be way higher. So many games with microtransactions, $325 seems so little. Now, this is the thing. People who play gotchas probably spend that weekly. Here's my thing, is that I do feel like the industry right now is very much trying to figure out how to not just make good stories, not just make good worlds, but stay in the green in 2025. I feel like companies, the whole idea of PlayStation right now, they very explicitly said their idea is to launch a bunch of live service games, and then when those start printing money, then they can go back in a way to their single player roots. All right, we'll launch a huge Horizon Zero Dawn crazy live service game, and that'll fund Uncharted 5. That'll fund Last of Us Part 3. So they always stay way, way, way in the green. But the problem is, what happens if these live service games don't sell? Would a $120 game make up that gap? I just don't think it would. But I also think it's interesting hearing this specifically from Shawn Layden, because Shawn Layden is a guy that's wise, that's been in the industry for so dang long. I mean, he's a guy who championed a lot of the best games that we know and love from PlayStation. He was a big advocate for the Vita, rest in peace. But it's interesting that he said, I always thought Japanese are the best at game design by a mile, and I'm surprised the West hasn't taken more lessons from them. Shawn Layden was wise beyond his years. Now, this is a super long quote. I'm not going to let you watch all this, but it's super long. But essentially, he talked about the idea that originally the concept of Japanese game design was much more based on the arcade. Like, going back to the original PlayStation, he said, we wanted you to put a token into the machine and play Ridge Racer or Crash Bandicoot, right? The idea was to get you hooked on a game that was fun to play. Because if it was a blast for 20, 30, 40 hours, you'd go out and buy the next one. That's just how it worked back in the day. All right, buy the next $50 game, next $50 game, next $50 game. But now with budgets getting bigger, and honestly, so many things competing for your attention, I do think that Shawn Layden is a bit lost about, all right, how do we get you locked into an ecosystem these days? And he seems to be very against a lot of this current mythology, this current ideology going on. He has been very surprisingly outspoken against the current trends of PlayStation. Like, one of the things they're talking about is, I did a video about this last week, but PlayStation has very much talked about the fact that they're basically trying to figure out how to move past the PlayStation. And a lot of people that worked at PlayStation for years have said they don't really like the idea of this, that historically, PlayStation's business has been built on the system. All right, buy our console, buy our controllers, buy our games. We get profit, profit, profit. Whereas now they're basically saying, okay, our games are so expensive and they're so live service, we have to put them on Steam, we have to put them on Xbox, we got to put them on Nintendo Switch 2. We got to put them everywhere so that when we do make exclusives, which will probably still be their single player story focused stuff, people will come to us to buy it. And Shawn Layden's basically saying, this clearly is not the answer. But does that mean he wants it cheaper? It does seem like he really does just want games to be more expensive. I mean, I've seen him sort of repeat this over and over again. He's also very against subscription models. He said a lot about the idea that he's very, very, very anti-Game Pass, which obviously, if you've watched my videos a lot, I'm pretty anti-Game Pass too. And I think he is correct here, which is the idea that since by his own admission, profit margins are incredibly slim, right? So at this point, even if you are selling a game for $70 and it sells millions and millions of copies, it's difficult as heck to break even, especially Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2, we have the full leaked budget of that leaked. It was leaked in the Insomniac hack. That game cost $300 million cash to make. $300 million cash. That means it needed to sell 6 million copies to break even just on development, not even marketing, not even anything else. 6 million copies to break even. And I think he's basically thinking, okay, if margins are that slim, you can't be cannibalizing your big box sales with PlayStation style stuff. You can't do that with Game Pass numbers, right? It doesn't matter how many millions of people sign up to Game Pass. Clearly, it's not breaking even for the amount of development money they're spending, the amount of money they're spending on acquisitions and stuff. This is not creating value. Putting it in the marketplace, hoping it explodes in profit sharing. It doesn't create those incentives, is basically what he's saying. And I think Shawn Layden, for all of his good takes, for all of his bad takes, I think he is highlighting a weird shift that is already very much over in the industry. And I'm not sure we can snap back, because when we were all growing up, you bought a game, you played a game, you loved a game. You told your friends, here's Metal Gear Solid, here's Final Fantasy VII. Here's the games that are going to influence not just your current tastes, but your future purchasing power. And now we're in a spot where I just don't think that's enough. $70 games take so much to break even. These budgets are getting so big. These subscription services are so toxic. The amount of cannibalization via free-to-play games or even live service games with a monthly fee, it does feel like the industry is locked in a speed that seems self-destructive. And I honestly don't know what the answer is. The industry is in a strange idea, because right now, the more you watch gaming, the more you understand gaming, the more you sort of do the napkin math of gaming, the more you see that stuff is headed for a crash. And I'm just not sure what comes out the other side. Is it lower budget games? Is it another indie renaissance? Is it more free to play than ever before, but maybe the skins are cheaper? Or is it just everybody gaming on phones? I don't really know. I'm still open-minded and I'm still curious, but I stand by my prediction that I think this next console generation is it. I think when we have the PlayStation 6, it's over. The next Xbox, it's over. I do think that at this point, they're going to find a way to make systems as cheap as they possibly can, and we're just going to vibe. We're going to try and find a way to be profitable in this very expensive era. But what do you think about the current era of video games, and how do you feel about the idea of increasing game prices? And I specifically have a real question I have in the comment section, which is, how much do you spend a year on video games? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Oh man, and play Grandia. Damn it, play Grandia. God, I wish we had that Grandia MMO here in the United States. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.